So you've decided you want to sew yourself a skirt. So you've either downloaded one of the PDF patterns or a commercial pattern. So now you're not sure what's the next step. So I'm going to guide you how to take your measurements and how to work out your measurements with ease, and then look at the pattern and to see which size is going to suit you the closest according to your measurements. How does that sound? Tania Sutherland, and I am a fashion designer with over 35 years experience, and also recently started doing my own pattern designs collection, which I'm so excited about. I will leave the link down below for you to check out more of my PDF patterns. So today we're going to be talking about how to take the basic measurements for a skirt, and then how do you work out those measurements into quarter measurements, including ease, and then looking at the commercial pattern or the PDF pattern and to define which one is closest to your measurements. So I know this sounds kind of overwhelming if you're still new to sewing or if you're still quite unfamiliar with patterns. So I'm going to take you step by step. Today we're going to start off with a skirt. And I'll do a few series around this to show you how to measure your body for a jacket with a sleeve and to work out the length of the jacket that you want and the sleeve, the bicep, the width, etc. And then we'll move on to a trouser as well. So that just gives you a bit more confidence and clarity on how to make a few more garments to add to your wardrobe, making your beautiful clothes that you can rock your style according to your lifestyle. So let's get started. If you've been following some of my videos, you'll see that I always put my main patterns in an arch lever file where I take the main cover out and I put it into a pocket and I put it into my file. And then I actually label my files, giving them names so I know what specific garment type would be in each file. So this particular pattern that we're going to be starting off with today is a fairly old pattern. It is a Project Runway. So I'm now going to take it out of the little packet that I keep them sealed in packets, and then I have them filed in different little drawers, and each is also labeled for skirt, trousers, jackets, tops, dresses. And then I have a different cabinet that's full of the patterns that I make myself. Okay, so in this case we are going to be doing the skirt. So you look at your pattern pieces and you take out the pieces that you need. So for now, we're just going to be taking out the front and the back of the skirt, which basically looks the same because they've both been placed on the fold. If you enjoy any form of content around sewing, understanding about the sewing, if you love this type of content to do with sewing, understanding more about your patterns, your measurements, and creating and planning that wardrobe to suit your lifestyle, and love looking through patterns and buying patterns to build up this wardrobe, then check out my PDF pattern collection. I'll leave the link down below. But what about if you want to turn this further into a business? I've even got courses to show you how to enhance your skills first, that you have the confidence to take it further into a business. So if you like this kind of content, how about giving me some love? Give me a thumbs up, press the subscribe button down below, and help me to grow my algorithms, because I'm here to stay just to give you more and more and more. Thank you. Measurements for a skirt. Now, being a designer and a pattern maker, I always take more measurements, especially when I'm making designer garments for a client. I take as many measurements as possible, because when they leave and I start with their order, I can't call them back several times to ask them for the measurements. So I always make sure I take as many as possible. So today I'm going to show you how to take just some basic measurements for a skirt, but one or two extra measurements that I take in, because you've got to consider that we have different body proportions. So let's get started. So the first thing would be is you're going to take your waist measurement. So you've got to decide where you're going to be wearing your skirt. So this is the true waist. So my true waist measurement, I'm going to write that down. And then I'm going to take another measurement. I'm going to take my navel, where my tummy area is, because some women have got maybe a very small waist, but they start to having a little bit of a curve around the tummy area. So I'm going to measure around the navel area, which will be my tummy. Another measurement that I like to take as well, because of our different body proportions, that is my first hip. So your first hip is basically where you can actually feel the beginning of your hip bone. Figure where your thighs are getting wider, so you've almost got like a third hip, because here's your first hip, here is the fullest hip, and you might even have another area where it's even wider. Then take that measurement as well. So in this case, we're just going to be taking 4 measurements: your waist, your tummy, your first hip, and your full hip. Now, when you buy a commercial pattern or a PDF downloadable pattern, they don't normally mention the first hip. They just give you the 1 hip measurement. I'm just giving a little extra so that you can be also aware of your body proportions. Now we've taken these measurements. If I had to take these measurements and go and put them into the pattern, I'd have a straitjacket, because I haven't allowed any ease. So ease is for that movability, so that you can actually move in your garment. Now, if you're going to make a garment, let's say a skirt now in a very stretch fabric, still move with the stretch in the fabric. But this is going to be a normal woven skirt, so you need to add ease into your garment. So I like to add in about 4 centimeter ease to it. So now I'm going to take these measurements that I've got, and I'm going to add 4 centimeters to them. And then I'm going to divide it by 4. That does not include seam allowance. That is just the ease with my circumference measurements of my body. So I've done a quick drawing that I teach my students in my class, that I teach the dressmaking as well as designing. Here is your body, and when you look at a commercial pattern, a PDF pattern, it's basically divided into 4, okay, into a quarter. So you've got 1 right front, 1 left front, 1 back left, and 1 back right panel. You'll see it says at the top, for instance, it says cut 2 times front, cut 2 times back, or cut on the folds that opens up. Same with the skirt. It will tell you cut the front perhaps on a fold. So that means it's on the fold, it's 1 side, open up, that's 2 sides. Exactly same for the back. The back could be cut 2 times the material with the zip. So that gives you 4. So we're going to take our full measurement, add the ease. So I'm basically adding 1 centimeter ease to either side. Okay. I'm going to divide it by 4. We've got that measurement, and obviously I'll always be aware of the fact there must still be seam allowance. This is to give you a good guideline to see what size pattern you can trace off that's going to fit you the closest. So let's go and check out the calculations. So here is the measurements that I've taken. So I've got my waist, my tummy, navel area, first hip and second hip. So these were my set measurements that I took around my body. Then what I did was I've written here ease, and I've added 4 centimeters. So there is a 4 centimeter ease to my normal measurement. Then I went and divided it by 4. So I've taken my waist measurement, which with the ease was 77, divided by 4. My tummy was 87, divided by 4. My first hip was 91, divided by 4. Second hip was 103, divided by, that's with my ease. So here is my quarter measurements. So now I'm going to first of all have a look at what my fullest area is, which is my hip measurement, and look at my pattern to see what it suggests, what size. So you'll have a look at your skirt pattern. Here it actually gives you a little indication that this area over here is the fullest part of the hip according to this pattern. And now we know we've taken that measurement. So here it's telling you size 8 to size 18. So it's showing me that a size 10 is about a 98 centimeters. And I'm about 99. So I could be more or less a size 10. But I'm not going to just take the pattern's word for it. I'm going to double check, because when you look at a pattern, yeah, it tells you total ease above with body measurements approximately 4 inches. I have more custom fit garments for myself as well as for my clients. So I'm going to be only adding on 4 centimeter ease, which I think is sufficient for a pencil skirt or a basic A-line type skirt. Okay, let's get started. So here I've got my hip indication line, and the pattern says place on fold. So as you can see, this is 1/4, and then the other side would be the other quarter, and then the back would also be on fold, so it would be 1, 2. So this is giving you your 4 panels. So if we just measure one panel, is giving us 2. I measure the back, it's giving me 3, 4. So now I'm taking my quarter hip measurement on my fullest hip. I'm going to lay the tape measure across. So it says 25.75. I'm going to round it off to 26 centimeters to make it easier. So I'm going to put my tape measure on the fold line, let it go over the line. Now, as you can see, my tape measure is stopping at the indication of the 10 line, but I still need to add 1.5. So that means if I look at that particular line and I still add 1.5, I'm basically a size 12 hip on this pattern. So I'm going to write here size 12 hip. And then what I do is I normally write down my pattern number as well. Okay, so my first hip. So your first hip is usually about 10 centimeters above your fullest hip. So here is about a 10 centimeter. So I'm just going to draw a little line on my pattern. And my first hip was 22.75. That's my quarter measurement. I'm going to round it off to 23. Once again, laying 23 centimeters on the fold line, going across, and then here my tape measure ends, and I still need to add my 1.5 centimeter seam allowance. So now my first hip is basically a size 8. So that is my first hip. So let's have a look at my tummy. So my tummy is 21.75, rounded off to 22. Now we have a dot. So be careful of your dot. You mustn't include the dot. You must go over the dot because that gets stitch closed. So now I'm going to look where my tummy measurement is. So your tummy area is usually anything from your first hip up to your waistline. So it's about 5 centimeters below, approximately. So I'm going to measure 5 centimeters from my stitching line on my pattern. I'm going to mark 22 centimeters from the fold line. So now I'm going to work on a size 12 because my hip said size 12. So now I'm going to look at the dot. So now I see the dot, but I'm now going to jump over the dot with my tape measure. I'm not including it. So now I can see here is my tummy measurement. I must make sure there's my seam allowance. So now my tummy is a size 10. That's my navel tummy area. Let's have a look at my waist. So I'm going to work on the stitching line of the pattern, which is 1.5 centimeters down from the cutting line. This is the cutting line, not your stitching line. Once again, you need to be aware of the dot. So mine is 19.25. So I'm going to put 19.25 on the tape measure, do the size 12 dot. I'm going to jump over the dot. So now I'm less than an 8, 1.5 centimeter seam allowance. So it's about 10.5. So I'm going to put just size 10. Now you can see how my body has got 3 different sizes. So my full hip is a 12, my second hip is an 8, my navel is a size 10, and so is my waist. So I know now that I actually need to trace the pattern from a size 10 going into a size 12. I can't dip into the 8. To trace the pattern, you need to keep the design line of your pattern. You mustn't change it, otherwise you're distorting the pattern. And you need to still follow the pattern as is. The next thing would be is you want to know how long do you want your skirt to be. So I measured my skirt to be 50 centimeters, and I'll measure from the stitching line all the way down to 50 centimeters. So on this pattern, I'm already going off, which is 1 centimeter off the pattern line. And I'd like to have a 3 centimeter hem. So now I'm going to take my measurement, which is 53 centimeters, including my hem, put it onto my stitching line at the front of the skirt, and taking it down. And my tape measure shows me at the end of the skirt hemline of the pattern, I need to add 4 centimeters. So I'm going to write on my sheet of paper, add 4 centimeters to skirt hemline. And it's a 3 centimeter hem allowance that I am including. I'm just going to double check with the back, but if I take the two skirt patterns together and I lay the front onto the back, they look identical. And they are. So I'm not going to measure the back twice because it's exactly same pattern cut 2 times. So I'm not going to measure the back as well. But if it was a skirt that the back maybe just had your zip seam allowance, you actually need to measure both panels to make sure that you've got the correct measurements on your pattern. I hope you enjoyed this very quick tutorial on how to measure, take your custom measurements and to put them into a pattern. So in my next video, I will show you how to do the same on blouse with a sleeve and a dot. So you can actually work out your sleeve measurements of your bicep, the length of your sleeve, also do a trouser. So I can just give you some more guidelines so you find that you have more clarity and more confidence with your sewing journey, whether you're sewing for yourself or taking it to the next level and actually starting off a business. Until next time, this is Tania Sutherland.